Welcome to This Explainer. You know, human innovation is absolutely incredible, but today we're going to dive into some of its fascinating and frankly completely invisible consequences. We're looking at a wild spectrum here, scaling from the microscopic plastics that are probably circulating right now in your veins, all the way up to global biosecurity in the age of artificial intelligence. It's a real look at the hidden costs of our rapid progress.
To do that, our journey today takes a micro to macro approach. We're going to cover the invisible plastic within our bodies, clotting and heart risks, the AI biotech threat, how tech is lowering the misuse barrier, and finally, governing the unseen. So we're starting intimately small inside your bloodstream, and then we're going to expand all the way out to impending technological global security threats.
Okay, let's jump right into our first section. We're looking at a recent, really eye-opening study out of South Korea that examined the blood of 36 completely healthy adults. And the sheer scale of what they found is staggering. Nearly 9 out of 10, 89% of those healthy participants tested positive for microplastics. And we aren't talking about environmental pollution in some distant ocean. We're talking about physical pollution circulating directly inside their cardiovascular systems.
When researchers looked closer, they found these plastics circulating at an average of 4.2 particles per milliliter of blood. The main culprits? Everyday materials like polystyrene and polypropylene. What's absolutely wild here is that the presence of these specific plastics is heavily linked to how often we use standard plastic food containers. Our modern convenience has, quite literally, become a part of our biology.
Moving into Section 2, let's look at what this actually means for our physical reality. Because unfortunately, these plastics aren't just taking a passive, lazy river ride through our veins.
The researchers observed something super specific. They found elevated levels of a protein called fibrinogen in the folks with high microplastic concentrations. If we're not familiar, fibrinogen is produced by your liver, and it is a totally critical player in how your blood clots. So this means these microscopic plastics are directly interacting with and potentially disrupting your body's crucial coagulation factors. You really have to wonder, right? What's the big deal? What actually happens when synthetic materials start interfering with the delicate balance of how our blood flows and clots?
Well, the short answer is nothing good. This unseen disruption is dangerous. It leads to elevated C-reactive protein, which is a massive red flag for inflammation. And ultimately, this physical interaction raises your risk of severe cardiovascular conditions, like heart attacks and strokes. The invisible byproducts of our food packaging are actively stressing out our hearts.
All right, we're going to make a pretty sharp pivot here. We are moving from this unintended physical pollution inside our bodies to an unintended digital disruption that's threatening our global security. Both are totally invisible, both are byproducts of a rapid innovation, and honestly, both require our immediate attention. Which brings us to Section 3. A recent, incredibly exhaustive study in the journal Frontiers analyzed a completely different yet equally invisible modern threat: AI-driven synthetic bioweapons. They brought together a panel of biosecurity experts to map out exactly how emerging tech is changing the threat landscape.
What they found is that it isn't just one single technology causing the risk. It's the convergence of several. You've got rapid advancements in artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, and nanotechnology, all colliding to accelerate synthetic biology, or synbio. This huge tech pylon is drastically lowering the barrier to entry, making it cheaper, faster, and way easier for malicious actors to manipulate pathogens.
When the panel of experts actually ranked their biggest concerns, the results were pretty revealing. While naturally occurring pathogens are still the top fear, look at how close unintentional release and intentional release are. The experts are highlighting that as these tools become more common, the looming danger of an accidental lab leak or a deliberate synthetic bioweapon attack are almost equally terrifying.
And the timeline on this is shrinking fast. Most of these experts warn that synthetic bioweapons could become our dominant threat, surpassing conventional bioweapons within the next 10 to 50 years. In fact, a lot of them think this could happen within just the next decade. This rapid acceleration means our current global regulations are completely inadequate.
Let's slide into Section 4 and talk about why this is happening. Because not all artificial intelligence fuels this specific risk in the exact same way.
The experts divide the threat into two distinct categories. First, you have large language models, or LLMs. Think of these as barrier-lowering tools. They democratize knowledge, practically giving anyone the step-by-step instructions for manipulating pathogens. On the flip side, you have biological design tools, or BDTs.
These are capability-raising tools. They give bad actors the high-level power to actually design incredibly specific, stable, and undetectable novel proteins and DNA. So basically, one gives you the recipe, and the other literally invents a deadlier ingredient.
Section 5. So how do we govern threats we can't even see yet? How do you regulate invisible lines of code that can design synthetic viruses?
Interestingly, the experts totally agreed that our biggest vulnerabilities right now aren't even technological. They are fundamentally human. We're talking about high-impact gaps ranging from a basic lack of risk awareness and poor lab access monitoring all the way up to a critical lack of verification instruments under the Biological Weapons Convention.
To combat this massive gap, the researchers proposed a brilliant 4-step cyclical governance model. First, you start locally by raising awareness and educating scientists about these dual-use risks. Second, you establish heavy-duty training and real-time lab monitoring. Third, you build agile regulations that can actually keep pace with AI. And finally, you scale globally to strengthen our international treaties.
The big endgame here is modernizing those international treaties, specifically the Biological Weapons Convention. Right now, it really lacks teeth. Experts argue we desperately need to pull it into the 21st century by explicitly including AI and gene editing in the treaty, setting up rock-solid, on-site and digital verification mechanisms, and mandating digital signatures for anyone ordering genetic materials. Plus, we need multinational task forces constantly monitoring these rapid advancements.
By blending top-down global regulation, like the modernized treaties we just talked about, with bottom-up lab engagement and education, we can weave what the experts call a resilient web of prevention. It's like a safety net. If one layer fails, another catches the threat before it scales out of control.
If you take anything away from this explainer, let it be this dynamic right here. As technology de-skills complex biology and makes it easier for everyone to use, the responsibility to govern it safely becomes infinitely harder. Democratizing technology is absolutely fantastic for innovation, but we have to remember it carries profound invisible risks.
Whether it's the unintended consequence of microplastics quietly clotting in our blood or the deliberate code written to build synthetic pathogens, a rapid progress clearly comes with hidden costs. It leaves us with a massive question to ponder today. As our technology becomes simultaneously more powerful and more invisible, how will we safeguard the very blueprint of life itself? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep asking the big questions.
Welcome